Good afternoon or good morning, depending on when you listen to this. My name's Tom Soane. Welcome to another episode of The Anonymous Landlord. And today we've got an important landlord update, and also for letting agents as well. You should all know about this, and you all should really be doing something about this ASAP. And this is all about your tenants' settled status in the UK. So basically it's all about if you've got a European tenant living in your rental property, the deadline is today for them to at least have applied for settlement, the right to live in the UK. So I just want to talk you through what it is exactly you need to know, what your tenants need to do if you do have European tenants, and what you as landlords need to do today in order to stay on the right side of this piece of legislation. I'll also tell you a little bit of information about what you need to do as a landlord to check your current tenants to make sure that you are complying with the current legislation, and also give you some tips on the advice that you can give to your tenants to make sure everything is okay. So let's kick off. Now, in a nutshell, European tenants have until the end of today, it's the 30th of June, they have until the end of today to apply for the European Union settlement scheme. And landlords, by the way, you need to act today as well to make sure that your tenants do this, at least have applied for this. Otherwise, your tenant could become an illegal immigrant. That means it's illegal for them to live here. It's illegal for them to work here. They won't be able to receive benefits. And they also won't be able to use the NHS either without massive charges, which will also impact your risk as a landlord as well. Think about it. If they can't work, they can't receive benefits, and something happens to them, they need to use the NHS, they can't get any income. They also will have to pay out any money they've got if something happens to them and their health. So remember that you need to do something now. And this is all part of the Brexit process. Part of it is called the freedom of movement. And don't know if anybody remembers Brexit, by the way. That's been forgotten now, isn't it? But no, this is all part of Brexit, where all European citizens will have to apply for the right to settle in the UK. It's called the EU settlement scheme. Now, there are obviously thousands of tenants that have still not applied for this, and this is going to be huge if they and you don't act. Immigration enforcement officers are sort of, I guess they're going to be scheduled, if you like, or set to issue out 28-day warnings to any EU citizen that hasn't yet applied to remain in the UK. So basically, they're going to check all of these people that historically have been identified as European and find out if they've applied or been registered as an EU citizen, or at least with the right to reside in this country. Now, the Home Office are going to allow unlimited time. Don't be fooled by that, but unlimited time to complete an application. If there's obviously a good reason or a reasonable reason for a delay in your tenant applying for that settlement registration, but it is open to interpretation, that, so I'd be quite careful not to ignore it. It does mean that there might be a bit of flexibility, but it also means that they could interpret differently to you. And obviously, as with all of these government things, it's not been broadcast very well. They leave it to the members of the general public to do it for them for free, might I add. I'm doing this video for absolutely free just to try and make sure that landlords are getting this right. So remember, this has got to be done today. This is the deadline. Now, obviously, if your tenant does fall into this trap of not being able to work, not being able to earn because it's illegal for them to live here, then that really does impact you, Mr. and Mrs. Landlord. So really, we need to know, first of all, what tenants should apply and must apply for this, or what are the statuses here? Well, there's two main ones. You can apply for settled status. And by the way, this also includes European landlords as well. So you can apply for full settled status. And that basically means that you can prove, or your tenant can prove, that they've lived in the UK continuously for at least 5 years. And you have to be able to prove that. And that will be things like utility bills or identification, driving licenses, things like that. Or, by the way, don't take that as gospel. You'll need to look this up yourself. But the headline is that your tenant will need to be able to prove that they've lived in the UK continuously for at least 5 years. That would be considered permanent residency, and that should be granted settled status, full settled status. If they're less than 5 years residing in this country, or they can only prove less than 5 years, that will be known as pre-settled status. And they should be granted that, but it means that when they have lived in the UK, or they can prove that they lived in the UK for 5 years, that's when they will get the full settled status. And remember, this is called the EU settlement scheme. And by the way, I'll just interlude very quickly. If you like this video, if it's helpful, please hit like, please hit subscribe, please leave me a comment below just letting me know that I'm doing okay and these are helpful. Now, and it's also really cool when you get loads of likes for things like this. It makes me keep doing them. Now, landlords, what do you need to do? Job number one is to check the immigration status of your tenants. Do that now. I think just give them a call, give them an email, give them a text, just to say, have you applied for your settlement status or registration for the EU settlement scheme? That's probably the best way to describe it. Now, if your tenant is an EU citizen, then they should know about this as well if the government have done their job. I doubt it, but anyway, they should know. So check the immigration status of your tenants. Now, when you moved the tenant into the property, you should have carried out your right to rent checks, and they are very set checks. It's a very formal process for the right to rent requirements. Now, if you haven't done that, do it now. Please do it now. And if you need some help with that, then just give me a shout. I've got a template that you can use or you can follow if you want it, but you've got to get in touch with me if you do want that. You can either email me, tom@pinkstreet.co.uk, or comment below and one of my team will reach out to you, or just send me a message through Facebook, whatever it is, through my Facebook page, which is just Tom Sohn. Anyway, there's big penalties. So if you didn't do the right to rent checks, at least do that now. I will help you as much as I can, but there's big penalties if you haven't done it or don't do it, even more so now. And by the way, it will be treated as a criminal proceeding. So do remember that. And by the way, if you're in Portsmouth, which is my home city, or surrounding areas, and you want my lettings team at Pink Street to get all this done for you, then again, just comment below, send me a message, whatever it may be, email tom@pinkstreet.co.uk, and I'll connect you up with my team and they'll just help you through this whole process. Anyway, now, there is a little bit of a grey area as well, because any tenant who has a pending application after today is still protected. And that means you are too, Mr. and Mrs. Landlord. So if they have a pending application, it just means that it hasn't been completed by the people that are processing those applications in time. So they are still protected, but they must have a pending application. They'll also receive a certificate confirming that they have applied. So this is what you need to see. I would say it's not necessarily requirement for you, Mr. and Mrs. Landlord, to physically see this certificate, but because there are so many different things that are going to be impacted by for you, Mr. and Mrs. Landlord, if your tenant does not apply for this EU settlement scheme, then I would request to see a certificate confirming that the tenant has applied for the scheme. Now, the tenants can also prove, if they need to, remember the word is prove, they'll have to provide evidence that there are reasonable grounds for missing this deadline today. Again, this is open to interpretation, Mr. and Mrs. Landlord. So if your tenant is not applying or hasn't applied yet, get on the phone to them now, get on the text to them now, get on the email to them now, make sure they do it. It's so easy as well. It's not even a big process. You can do it all online. Anyway, and by the way, I kind of direct this to landlords and letting agents. This is very urgent. So if you haven't done this, then do this now. So the first thing to do is ask your tenant if they've applied. Next thing to do is request that certificate of application. Then follow it up to make sure it's done. So if they have applied, keep following it up to make sure that that application gets completed. And look, just get yourself a good letting agent, whether that's my company, Pink Street, or whether that's my company, Taylor Garnier, or Whites, or Yes Can Do, whoever, whichever it is, whichever letting agent it is, get yourself a good letting agent that can do this for you and protect you. If you want to talk about lettings management, of course, just let me know. You can just message me, email me, comment below, and I'll get in contact with you. I can talk through how it all works, how the fees work, what the requirements are, what the process is. Very simple stuff, but I'll talk you through that. Or, by the way, I should probably mention, if you want to buy an investment property, if you're a landlord that wants to grow your portfolio, or somebody who wants to invest in property for the first time, then I can definitely connect you with real property investment deals and opportunities. You know, the good ones, the off-market stuff, below market value, real investment opportunities. So anyway, I veered off topic there slightly. In summary, landlords, contact your tenants today. Make sure that they've applied for the EU settlement scheme. And I would also find out if they're applying for full settled status or pre-settled status. Remember, full settled status is granted if they have proof that they've lived in the UK for 5 years, and pre-settled status is if they can't prove 5 years. But they will eventually have to become full settled status. So that's that. I hope that helps. Please share this round, because I bet a ton of landlords do not know this yet. And I also bet a ton of tenants also don't know this either. So there are going to be thousands and thousands of tenants that miss this, and landlords. Let's help out as many people as we can. Comment below if this was helpful. Comment below if you've already heard of this, or comment below if you have taken action. Let's see if we can help as many landlords as we can. Speak to you all later.